Okay, don't die. So last week what we did is we had like a custom view, and we drew some lines in it. And we had our issues with the from the week before with data type stuff. So tonight I'm going to do something a little different. So with that shapes file that you downloaded, go ahead and open that guy up, decompress it. And you should have, like, I think it's 4 different images.
3.
Darn it. All right, well, we'll have to make the 4th then. That's okay. Hi, Adam.
Hate trains. Hate trains. 15 minutes. Hold on. Oh, I should heard the way it was in the car.
I had a friend who was a little bit quirky, and he was in an elevator with an elderly lady one time, and it was an awkward silence, and so he looked at her and he just said, "I love trains." And that didn't do anything to break the awkwardness of the situation. I think it made it worse. But he that
Sounds like something I do when I was 12.
yeah, he was about 18 at the time. All right, so with the shapes that you have, circle, lines, and square, and we'll have to make an eraser. Drag those guys into the project. Yeah, Adam, we won't mention anyone by name. But anyway, we created a new drawing project called Drawing 2, single view application. That's about where we're at. And then we had, there's a file out in Blackboard, resources for November 22nd class that has some images in it you need to download. Get the images out and then drop them in the project.
Did I miss it? How many more projects are we going to have?
We got one more assignment for the end of the semester. All right, so you should have a circle, lines, and a square. So I'll wait till everyone's caught up, Adam, and then we'll continue on.
And Vikings won.
Vikings did win. Who's the other team that didn't do so well?
They're sure falling.
Packers. That's who lost. Yep, that's it.
They have no defense at all. They lost both the middle linebackers, don't they?
Washington scored 42 points on them.
Like 4 of the plays were over 40 yards for touchdowns.
Well, you got no secondary, so they just
Yeah, there's
lost.
no secondary and no linebackers, no offensive line, no running backs.
And your quarterback is a head case right now.
He's got nothing on him.
Well, I would be too if I was in his situation.
You just watch every play and there's a person that get injured. I mean, they lost another, 2 corners that game, so they're down 5 corners for the year.
I heard a good theory about why there's so many injuries in the NFL now. Because if you look at the number of injuries over time with the NCAA, with college football, they haven't gone up, whereas the NFL has just spiked. And
because of the bargaining agreement, they don't allow them to do contact prior.
yep, it's the limitation on the amount of contact and the amount of practice time. So their practice time has been shortened and the amount of contact time has been shortened quite a bit.
Correct.
And that's resulting in these injuries because their bodies are not accustomed to it.
And they're also not getting good form.
Yeah, they're not getting conditioned well. All right, so
This X with doesn't work, so
all right, if you guys are ready. Okay, so if you have your shapes in there, what we're going to do is tonight we're going to investigate a new control that we haven't used yet to this point.
Drawing 2.
Drawing 2 is what I'm calling
I
it.
like to draw drawing.
So this is going to be, we're going to put a toolbar in our view controller.
By the way,
Oh, you got the phone. Nice. Good deals. We will plug that bad boy in and get that going. All right, so tonight we're going to use a toolbar object. A toolbar is somewhat similar to a navigation bar, except a nav bar is part of a navigation controller, whereas a toolbar is just a toolbar by itself. It's a control as opposed to an entire controller. So it anchors itself. Generally, the default behavior is to anchor itself to the bottom of the screen, whereas a nav bar is at the top. And a navigation bar actually controls your navigation. It creates a navigation stack, whereas a toolbar does not. A toolbar can be used to navigate, but it doesn't come with built-in navigation. So anyway, it's more of when you want to select an option but stay on the current screen type of thing. So I'm going to drop a toolbar down at the bottom of our view controller here. And when you do that, you notice that it creates an item over here. So that is a toolbar item, or a bar button item actually is what that is. So these guys are like any toolbar, whether it's a Windows app or a mobile app or web app. It has a list of icons, and then you tap on them, or it can be text. Tap on them and it performs some action. So looking at the first item that it placed on there, if you look at the properties of it over here in the properties panel, it is a UI bar button item.
What item object did we drop?
A toolbar. Oops, I'm going to get rid of this guy. All right, so I'm going to go into the attributes of it. Over on the right, I mean, these things are pretty simple. It's a bar item. The title right now is item, so I'm going to remove the title, and I'm going to replace that with an image. Make this guy the lines. We use lines.png. So one of the things about bar button images is that they need to be need to have a transparent background. And then if you use the colored image, like I did on a couple of these, basically it removes that color from it, and it just creates like this bluish, uses like the tint color, the blue color. So you get the bluish. These were actually black to begin with. I just kind of copied them right out of like Word or something like that. So there's lines. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put another bar button item next to that. So down here in our object library is a bar button item. It says item on it. You want to drag that guy over. Just drop it next to the other one on the toolbar. And again, you can delete the title, delete that, and change the image to circle. So now we have lines, we have a circle. And then we'll do that one more time. Grab another bar button item, drag it over, drop it, and then change it, get rid of the item for that, and change that to square.
If you just grab the image, it'll delete the item out of it.
Oh, yeah, yep. Yeah, if you, yeah, because it's either or, it can't be both. So if you wanted to actually have a title on the bar button item, you'd have to incorporate that into the image. All right, so there's our toolbar. Probably don't really need to create a variable for that, but what we will want to do is create some handlers for it. So with the view controller selected, let's go ahead and open up the assistant editor. And there it is. I'm going to get rid of my object panel. And then what we can do is if you click, make sure you click on get the actual bar button item selected. So I'm going to click on the first one over on the left-hand panel, and then do a control drag from that up to your source code. Underneath the class declaration, it's going to be an action, not an outlet. So that's going to be an action. And we'll call this, I'm just going to call it bar button pressed. Type of object needs to be set to a UI bar button item. And then you can connect it. Now, I made this just a generic name because we're going to repurpose this guy. We're going to use it for the other objects. So then if you click on the second bar button item and do a control drag from that up to your bar button pressed function and drop it there. And then that will hook that one up to it. And then also with the third one, control drag up to your bar button pressed. And then you got all three of those buttons are hooked up to the same event. So I know what you're wondering, Sean, are you out of your mind? how are we going to know what was pressed? So the way that works is if I bring my panel back out, I'm going to go into here, into my, my first bar button item. You notice that over in the properties there's a tag. That tag is basically like an index that goes along with the button. So the first one I'm going to leave at 0. Second one I'm going to bump up to 1, the tag number. And then the third one I'll make 2. Alright, so now they're in numeric order so that when we get into this event, a UI bar button item is what gets passed into the event. And then we can just pull the tag variable out of that UI bar button item. All right, so that's that. We have the makings of a toolbar with some buttons to, as you probably have guessed, those are going to be used to make different shapes. All right, so last week when we did this, like an absolute buffoon, I had you code up the touch events in the view, which I later came to regret because that's not really a good model to use. If you want to add like a bunch of different objects, you've got all this business logic stuff happening in your view. So this week, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're also going to handle the way the actual drawing is done a little bit differently. So first off, let's go ahead and create a new file that'll be our custom view that we're going to use for drawing. So if you select your project folder and go new file, Cocoa Touch, and call it draw view. I think that's what we called it last week. And it will be derived from UI view. And we'll finish that, create it. For right now, I'm going to leave the overridden draw function commented out. But we are going to add a few different variables. First will be an enumeration that will be the drawing type. So we'll call it object type. We'll have a line. Don't use the lines.png if it pops up. It's a nice little feature, but that's not what we want. Square. And then finally, we're going to have an eraser too, which we haven't created yet on our toolbar because I forgot to give you guys the icon. So while we're at it, why don't we go ahead and do that since we got to do it eventually. Let's see if we can find an eraser. Go out to Google Images. I find that clip art usually provides ones that are more appropriate for toolbars and stuff like that. I think actually maybe that one's Gigantor. Jeez. Try that one. That's huge too. Whatever. Okay. I'll shrink it down. So I'm going to actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to use grab to go ahead and just do a screen grab of this guy. It's not critical. We just need something to represent an eraser. Capture selection.
That's capture, right?
Yep. Yeah, the name of the app is grab, but yeah, you want to do a capture. Alright, so there's my eraser. I am not going to do anything with it in here because grab very stupidly creates TIFF files. I'm just going to do an edit copy, and then I'm going to start up preview because preview defaults to a PNG format.
Are we supposed to be doing this so you can pick this out here?
I can put it out there if you don't want to do it, that's fine. I'm doing a file new from clipboard with my picture.
So we have the, so now once you create the little thing, what do you do again?
What? Once you do what? What?
Oh, the little happy guy, that's nice.
You want a happy eraser? Oh, that guy's kind of cool, but you don't have a lot of room to work with on the toolbar. So next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove the background because you need to have a transparent toolbar icon. So I clicked on my toolbox. My little wand guy here will erase the background. So wherever it's peach colored, I select that and I hit delete. And then that erases that background, so I have a transparent background. So now I have a big honking eraser. I got to resize this thing.
I'm just gonna-
Is it gonna be a blue eraser too?
Yeah. It won't have, I mean, it's just going to look like a blob, but that's okay. You'll know what it is. Width, I'm going to go with about 80 pixels. 34 height, that's perfect. All right. And then save them. Put it on my desktop. Save them as eraser. Boom. Oh, it already exists. I already had one. Well, it's okay. I'll replace it. Okay, so there's my eraser. Now I will upload that for you guys. Oh, it's on the desktop. There's the eraser.
Where are you putting
Blackboard in the learning plans. So it'll probably end up on the bottom. I'll move it up. Eraser. Eraser image. There it is.
Ah.
All right. So with that, then put that in your project.
It's not downloading.
Yeah, that just shows me a little picture of an eraser. It's really cool, but it doesn't really download.
Then just try to right click and copy, or else do a screen grab of it and save
Do
it.
the screen grab.
Do a screen grab. It might be because I was moving it around. I'm done moving it around, so.
Let's try to be just ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah, it's that really cool.
Click on open eraser.
Yeah, if you click on the open eraser image here, it takes you to this.
Then right click.
Save image as, yep. There you go. Isaiah's got it. Just got to work with it.
Why are you looking
Because I am lost.
All right, so where's my eraser? There he is. Okay, I'm going to drag it and drop it in my project with my other ones. Once you guys have that in your project, then you can go ahead, we can add that as another toolbar item. And then we will have, now we'll have to create another action for it.
It is a big blue blob.
Yep. It takes the color out of it. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can kind of tell what it is, though. All right, and then,
The tag right away to 3.
yep, change the tag to 3, good call. And then make your, hook up your event handler for it. Make sure you do it to the view controller, not to the view. All right. So now, if I look at my view controller, and then I look at my outlets over on the right, there should be 4 bar button items with the received actions that show up for the bar button pressed event. So that means they're all wired up correctly. They'll all go to that event when one of these guys is tapped. All right. So now that we have that,
How did you tell them that they were all?
if you select the view controller and then go over to the panel and look at the outlet inspector, and then there's the received actions down here.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And so that's good. All right, so now we need to go back to our draw view. So we have our enumeration set up. Okay, so the next thing, I'm going to pick an easy object to do first. I think what I'm
1
going to,
second, please.
yeah. So let me know when you're ready. So far, QuickTime has not died yet, so that's a good thing.
Because it's the moment for us to be controlled, so now we need to try and measure. I switched. See, this is the video control. Oh, it's not dropping. It's supposed to be this one. No. This is drum view just as the object, it's just like the template, it's not a drop, the drops. So, go back, redo that again. Yeah, it's back, there, it's gonna go there.
Hey, Glenn, something you could do if you have a couple minutes is, do you have a cable for your iPhone? Okay, I have a cable I can let you use, but what you can do is you can, well, I mean, I have one here. You can go ahead and plug it in and then go into iTunes, and then you can get the UDID of the device and then email that to me. And then once I have that, I can add that into our developer portal, and then you'll be able to, I'll have to create a new provisioning profile, but then you'll be able to go ahead and deploy apps to that.
I'll let you do it because this thing's now quickly.
So you can
Where's the arrow?
port and then home. And then we'll go, oh, I should probably figure that out too.
I don't know what I don't know how to check. It's in the actions. This one. But you have another one showing. See it here? Get this. All might show this, but we see the actions here. But I don't know. You're sure.
Yeah.
Can you help me for a second? I'm not really sure
All right.
why this doesn't show. We linked them all in there, but none of them are showing.
Yeah, if you just click on the view controller itself.
Oh, thanks.
View controller. There you go. There they
Oh,
are.
yeah, they're there.
So you're good. You just had the toolbar selected, I think. All right.
Maybe about that.
So now in our view, what we're going to do is we got to keep track of a few things. One will be the type of object selected. This is pretty long-winded of a name for me, but oops. This is going to be an object type.
That's good. Well, that's good.
In fact, let's go ahead and set that right away. Object type dot square is what we'll start off with because it's going to be one of the easier ones to make. All right. So that's going to be the currently selected object type. Another thing we're going to do is I'm going to have a start point. So this will represent the point that is first touch when they first make contact with the screen. Start drawing. That will just do like that. And then I'm going to make another custom object that's
You capitalized yours, mine wants to do a small one, do I have to do a capital? What's the difference?
on which.
Object type?
Oh, if you used camel case, like this is a lowercase, that's fine.
Oh, I did, yeah.
Let's create another object. So go up to the folder, right click and do a new file. This Cocoa Touch class, we'll call this drawing object. This guy is going to be relatively plain, but we need it for a reason that I'll show you later. Okay, drawing object, UI view, and create. Alright, so for right now, that's all we need to do with that. Let's go back to the main storyboard before I forget and go into your view controller and select the view in the view controller scene so that you get that highlighted in blue. And then over in the identity inspector over on the right hand side, click that and change it from just UI view to be draw view, so that we don't have the same situation that happened last week where nothing was happening. Alright, so then now I think we have all the pieces in place. We need to start adding more code in. So back in our draw view, in this guy, we are going to have a selected object, which is the actual object on the screen. And that is going to be a drawing object. That sounded like an utterance of pain, Adam. Okay, then we can uncomment the onDraw, or drawRect used to be. Alright, so we're just about to the point where we can actually draw stuff, but we're going to need some code to do it. So the first one I'm going to code up because it's probably the simplest is the square.
Why would I do that? It constantly put drawing object view behind drawing object each time.
Where are you talking about?
Where you have variable selected object,
Is
drawing
name
object?
just
You probably named it that. Did you name it
I
drawing?
like it.
Sometimes IntelliSense is smarter than us. It's like, why are you calling it that? Well, that's because that's what you called it.
Hacker fan, remember?
Oh man, no, I'm not going to touch that. Well, the Vikings are at least you know you don't have much hope. In the case of the Vikings, they always do this every season where they'll win one or two more games and get that glimmer of hope going, and then end of the season, yep, just implode.
It's not like you missed a 23-yard field goal.
What's that?
It's not like you missed a 23-yard field goal. Wow, okay.
No, nothing like that. All right, so enough football or what the Vikings pass as football. We'll call this create square, this function. If I could spell square. All right, create square.
Create
Yeah,
square.
you're missing the,
It's okay for spell.
Can't spell create either. Create square. I'm going to pass in a CG point. So what's going to happen is the logic here is they touch the screen and we set the start point, and then we set the object type based on what the object type is selected from our toolbar. And then once they start to move, the instant they begin to move their finger to draw, at that point we create an object, and then we set our selected object to that object. And then until they release their finger from the screen, that object is going to be manipulated on the screen. We're going to change the size of it to correspond with what they're doing. All right, so with the create square, we need to make a rectangle. And I'm going to use a very brief CG rect. And we're going to use this guy here, X, Y, width, and height. Okay, X is going to be start point dot X. Y will be start point dot Y. Okay, width is going to be end dot X, our point that's passed in, minus start point dot X. And height will be the, end dot Y minus start point dot Y. And we'll have to probably fill in some punctuation to make it happy. All right. So we're going to do the drawing in the view, which is where you should do the drawing, because that's like the canvas, like I say. But we're going to handle the logic of which object is being created, and passing, basically the controller, the view controller is going to pass the data into the view and let the view do the drawing with it. All right, so we have this rectangle. This is going to be the rectangle we're going to form, and then we're going to fill that in. So one thing I'll mention is that there's a scenario where if they move their finger to the left of the start point, basically they're going to be drawing a square from right to left. And I thought that it might crash if you do that, but I think it's just fine. I think it can handle it, and it'll actually create the square the way you intend it to be. All right, so now what we need to do is create an object from this, a drawing object, which is the guy we just created, that custom view, and pass in the rectangle that we just created. One more thing we're going to need, just occurred to me. In the app delegate, like we did this last week, we're going to do this again. Remember the app delegate, in addition to being like the orchestrator of everything that happens at the app level, can also be like a repository for global variables. And we're going to do that here again. And we're going to initialize that as well, so that we don't have a case where it's null, and then I'll start it off as blue. You can set to whatever color you like. So in the app delegate, we're going to have the selected color. Then in our draw view, we're going to reference that. And I'm going to do a little something fancy here. UI application dot shared application or shared dot delegate.
Hold on 1 second.
Yep.
Is there a reason mine doesn't accept blue?
Yes.
Is it
In your
rules?
app delegate.
Oh, UIColor.
So back in the draw view, we're going to have this line of code. So we're getting a handle to our app delegate. It's a UI application, has this shared property, and that basically returns a singleton instance of the UI application. And then all UI applications have a delegate class. And so then now we can get a hold of our selected color. I'm going to need to add exclamation point to the as. Then we can say our object dot background color is equal to color. And then what we're going to do is say self. This is a view, so we're going to call add subview.
I didn't know.
Okay, so now we've created this square. Then the next thing we do is say self.
Mine is not acknowledging the background color.
On your object.
Yeah.
So you have it set to a drawing object, and your drawing object is derived from UI view.
Yeah.
Do you have
It just
a
doesn't like that background color.
compiler error possibly above it?
Do you let drawing object view frame on?
You need
Try taking
Do
out,
that. Let's try mine.
try taking out the question. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, just to make the question. You put it in there. Okay, good.
That's a punctuation thing.
Yeah, put a question mark and then it said it blew up.
From the
Question mark and
minds,
then it went.
from the minds of Apple. All right, problem solved. So you add the subview. Then the next thing I want to do is say self dot selected object equals obj, so we know which one it is. Now, once the object is created, we don't want to recreate it. So what we're going to do next is create a modify object method that will change the size of the square based on how they move around. And we can repurpose this guy, I think, for the circle because there's only one small difference between the two. So the method will look real similar. In fact, we can take this, copy this code from up here. Now we've already set the selected object. What we can do now is set the frame of that object equal to our new rectangle. That basically will force it to be confined to that size. And then we can add some code in here to say if selected object type is equal to object type dot circle, we're going to make this into a circle. Selected object dot layer, that's that invisible thing that kind of rides on top of the surface, dot corner radius is going to be equal to r dot width divided by 2. So basically what that does is it takes the square and it just rounds the corners equal to the radius of the circle. I mean the radius of the width, half the width of the square. That becomes your radius. Then after we're done with that, we call self.setNeedsDisplay to redraw. Okay. Now, let's see, we need to do a little bit of work in our method in the view controller. Okay. So what we'll do is create a switch statement. So sender again is a UI bar button item. And there is a tag member that we set in the storyboard. So we can say case 0. Before I do that, let's do put a line up here. Let draw view dv equals self.view as draw view. Okay. In case the tag is 0, that means we're drawing a line, so that means the draw view's selected object type is equal to, let's see, it's going to be draw view dot object type dot line. Then you got to put a break after that. And then case 1 is going to be equal to a circle. It's 2, then it's going to be a square. And in other words, it's an eraser. And that should get rid of, no it doesn't.
Don't you have to have a default?
Yeah, you do. I thought unusual though that you'd have to have that, because usually if you exhaust the number of enumerations there are an enumerated value, it doesn't.
I have the default, I don't have an error, so.
No, you do it. It is requiring it, but it's kind of weird that it is. Command B, I'll set it equal to square. there.
Mine's not required to have it in it.
It doesn't. Yeah, that's weird because it shouldn't really, because we've exhausted all the different enumerated types for that particular enumeration. So usually what it does is the compiler looks at it and says, looks at the enumeration that you're using and says, oh, there's 4 different types. You have to cover each one of them, or else you have to have a default. If you cover each one of them, you shouldn't need a default. But I don't know what they do when they create these versions of Xcode. Seems like it's so finicky, but all right. Okay, so now what we need to do is start hooking up our touch events. This time we're putting them in the view controller instead of the view. So let's start with touches began.
An error on my left DB says equals must have consistent white space on both sides, and I have a space on both sides.
Of
Well, I did. Never mind.
it went away,
I did
May.
have it, then when I clicked off, it went away.
Before you fly down the road, can you go back to the draw view, please?
Yeah. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Go ahead, Sean.
I didn't want to stop you, but you went a little fast.
Oh, that's fine.
What number are you looking for off of my iTunes? Is it the serial number?
Yeah, so actually click on the serial number, click on the actual number. It should change to UDID once you click on it.
Oh.
That UDID is what I need. So if you right click on that number, it will give you a copy option. And then you can take that copy and then just send it to me in an email. Are you good, Nate?
Yep.
Okay. Meanwhile, back at the ranch here, we have those set. We need to start coding in our touch events. So, first thing we're going to do is get a handle to our view. Self.view as draw view. I'm almost certain that's going to require me to put an exclamation point there. All right, so now I'm gonna actually borrow my switch statement from up here because we're gonna need it again. I'm gonna have to change it up a little bit, but that's okay. So just take the switch statement from the touches, from the bar button pressed event and put that down here. And then we're going to change inside the switch where it says sender.tag. You can change that to dv.selectedObjectType. And then we're going to have to draw view dot object type dot square. All right, so then we got to change these numeric enumerations as well. Bear with me here. This gets easier in a little bit. Just got to cover every case.
Is there a reason you did square first?
Yeah, because that's the one I want to do first. I want to code first. So I'm just kind of doing it logically in the order I'm going to do them. It just makes it easier for me to think about it. Doesn't matter the order as long as you have each one covered. Eraser. And this should not happen. So I'm just going to code in a return. All right.
So I'm trying to see what you changed.
So then, like, the one that you have square,
Mm-hmm.
you have to change the DV selected.
Yeah, this stuff all is going to go away.
Oh.
Oh,
I just needed to borrow the switch, the case stuff.
Can you hold on while I catch up?
Yep. Yeah, and in fact, why don't we go ahead and just take a break right now, and we'll come back to it in 10 minutes. And I'm going to stop the recording so I don't blow up the world.